what's going on, guys? Welcome to the Nikki vlog. Today I'm going to tell you my birth story, the day beautiful little Iris Ann came into this world. Now, a little pre-warning, I didn't have the exact delivery that was ideal, that I was hoping for, so I don't want to scare anyone who's pregnant or thinking about having a baby. I'm going to be honest in this video. So it doesn't mean it'll happen to you anyway. Okay, so I was 10 days late, I want to say, when I actually had Iris. My whole pregnancy, I thought that I was going to have her early. I was convinced every time my stomach felt funny or something, I was like, oh my gosh, it's a sign. I'm going to have her soon. But nope, I was about 10 days late. Goes to show you never really know how you're gonna have your baby. So the last couple weeks close to your due date, you have to go to the doctor to be examined, where they check and see if you're dilating or showing signs that you may go into labor soon. And I wasn't dilating at all for a really long time. I was a big ol' 0, and it was getting very discouraging to me, because after I talked to some of my friends, they were like, oh yeah, I was dilating at a 2 weeks before I had my baby. So if you watched my vlogs, you could see that I was starting to get a little discouraged that I was going to have to be induced, that I wouldn't be able to go into labor naturally. And then I had my 41-week checkup. So I go into my appointment. It was just a regular day, and we were even vlogging. Maybe we didn't end up posting the footage before I gave birth, because that day it ended up being our birth vlog. Maybe I'll put that vlog up as some bonus footage. But we go into my 41-week appointment, and they check my blood pressure, and then I go and I lay down and I get checked, and oh my gosh, I'm dilating. Finally, I was dilating on my own. I was at 2, and I felt so proud of myself. I had been walking every day, and towards the end of your pregnancy, like when you're overdue especially, every single day starts to feel more and more uncomfortable. I was just feeling like I was ready to have a baby. Turns out I was. The doctor leaves the room, and she comes back in and she says, Nicole, your blood pressure is high. You need to be induced right now. You need to go upstairs and have your baby. And I'm like, oh, what? I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't expecting to hear you are going to have your baby right now, right this second. And, well, it's not exactly right this second, but you know what I'm saying. So they were afraid that I had preeclampsia. So they sent me upstairs to labor and delivery. My doctor's office was in the same hospital. John and I were very shocked. I was, crying at first because it was so unexpected. And they were like, okay, just calm down, Nicole. It's all right, It doesn't even mean you'll have her right this second. A lot of times when you get put on Pitocin, are you all right? It can take up to 2 days for you to have your baby still. And they took my blood, took a blood sample and tested me for preeclampsia, and I didn't have it. I just had hypertension. So my blood pressure was high, and they gave me like one last meal, because you're not allowed to eat or drink anything once you start the Pitocin, which is pretty terrible. But it didn't end up taking me 2 days to get to the point where I was ready to push. I progressed pretty quickly on the Pitocin. I was 10 centimeters at about, I don't know, in the middle of the night / wee hours of the morning. It was time for me to start pushing and stuff. I did end up getting an epidural, because I guess Pitocin contractions are supposed to be a lot stronger and more intense than natural contractions. And they were happening like every 2 seconds. It's like Pitocin contractions are like even when you're in early labor. So I got the epidural because I don't see anything wrong with getting an epidural, and I wanted to be more comfortable and enjoy my birth as much as I could. But if you want my honest opinion, I technically was having natural contractions at first, and I think that I might have been able to do it had it been a natural labor and not induced. I think it could have been doable for me to have my baby. It was that because they were happening like every couple seconds and so often, I was like, okay, now let's try to rest a little bit before it's time to really start pushing. So I was pushing for a really, really long time. I ended up having to push for about 4 hours, and not enough was happening. And it's funny how you start to get really annoyed with people, like the nurses and stuff, when you're so uncomfortable and exhausted. I remember there was a new nurse in there, and I had two, and they were talking to each other. So one nurse's hand was like in my hoo-ha the whole time, and she was talking to the other nurse like, hey, so where did you go to college? Like, how are you? Like making small talk. And it was just building up and building up. I wasn't ready to yell at her, but John ended up saying something. I'm like, oh, thank God. John was like, okay, guys, can you please talk about this at another time? This is kind of a big deal what we're going through right now. And she was like missing my contractions because she was having small talk with the girl. I was looking over, I was like, now am I supposed to push? And she looks at the monitor and she goes, yeah, oh yeah, now. So I was getting kind of annoyed with that. Oh, really? Iris was not moving past a +2. She was stuck in my birth canal for a really long time. Not moving past a +2. Nothing was happening. She just kept coming out a little bit, going back in, coming out a little bit, coming back in. And the doctor thought, oh, maybe it'll help if we turn off her epidural. So, like, the last hour of pushing, I was not using an epidural. It was Pitocin, crazy contractions, no epidural, and still nothing happened. So I don't think they really needed to do that. I was in a lot of pain at that time. So then the doctor says, okay, you've been pushing too long. I'm giving you two options. We can either do a vacuum extraction, which the baby is not in the ideal position to do a vacuum extraction, and there'll be less risk to you, but there's a possibility that Iris would bleed in her brain. Or we could do a C-section, which, since she's already in your birth canal, it's going to be a complicated C-section, so there's more risk to you but less risk to the baby. And I said, well, you know, I'm stronger than a baby, so give me the C-section. And I went for that, and they gave me the paperwork, and I remember them saying, okay, it's going to be about a half an hour before you can go down and get your C-section. And I was like, a half an hour? What? That sounds like forever. And they ended up coming upstairs and giving me another, like, epidural thingy so that I was numb before I went down there. Okay, Iris was getting a little squirmy, so John took her so I can finish my story. So when they're actually doing the C-section and they're cutting in you, that doesn't hurt at all. I remember I was feeling some pressure on my ribs, like they were putting too much pressure in there, and I asked the anesthesiologist, I think that's what the guy is called, who's next to me, I was like, oh my God, am I dying? And he's like, what? No. And I said, oh, it feels like there's a lot of pressure on my heart. I thought like my heart was stopping or something. And then he told the doctors, he's like, okay, guys, you're putting too much pressure on her rib cage. You need to stop doing that. And then I heard Iris cry. She cried right away. She wasn't exhausted from me pushing too long. You're not able to see them right away when you have a C-section. Oh, plus there was meconium, so they needed to make sure she didn't have meconium in her lungs, which means she pooped in my stomach. And when they broke my water, they were able to see that. But John looked at her, and then he came over and he said, she is so beautiful. And I remember like hearing my baby cry, and oh my God, I didn't think I was gonna cry during this video. And it was such a beautiful sound. And I was really excited to see her, and finally they brought her over, and I was like, hi, baby. And I couldn't hold her right away because they were making sure that she was okay and I was okay, and they had her in the little plastic thing, and we were being wheeled to recovery, and we were side by side, and Iris and I just like kept looking at each other. I was on the gurney looking at her, and she was in the little plastic thingy. And then we were finally able to have skin-to-skin contact, and she was just laying on me, and I was so happy. I loved her so much already. It was such a beautiful moment. Like, I finally had my baby. I was finally able to meet her, and she's healthy and beautiful. The doctor said that her umbilical cord was around her neck when they were taking her out from the C-section. So maybe it was motherly instinct that she needed to be taken out that way, or maybe that's why it was so difficult for me to push her out. But I do have to admit that C-section recovery was really hard for me. I didn't get any of that postpartum depression that you hear of because of my baby. I was more depressed that I felt like I couldn't take care of her. I was so sore that I couldn't pick my baby up, and I wished that I could walk around and sing to her to comfort her when she was crying. When she would need to nurse, I would have to get someone to pick her up for me and hand her to me to nurse, and it was just so sore. And even after I got home, some nights I would just sit there shaking because I was in such intense pain. I couldn't move. It was hard for me to walk when they were telling me that I needed to walk around to get my digestive stuff moving. And I watched Katie and Cullen's vlog, and Katie had a C-section, and she was saying oh, it's not that bad. I can move around just fine. And I'm sitting there how? It was so hard for me. And I don't even consider myself a major weakling, but it was very, very sore for me. The C-section was hard for me to have. I felt like I was never going to get better. But it ended up taking 2 weeks, for me to feel fine again, which in retrospect, 2 weeks doesn't sound like a long time, but when you're in pain, 2 weeks feels like a really long time. At least I did have some help at home. John helped me a lot, and John's mom stayed with us for a while, and April came over as well to help me out. But that is the story of October 16th, 2014, the day I had my little angel. Yes, it was very tough for me, but she's totally worth it. I love her so much, and I love being a mom. I'm just so happy nowadays. It's crazy how after I had her, it makes it feel like nothing else matters in the world. Do I wish that I was able to have Iris vaginally? Yes, but I'm okay with the delivery that I had because I have Iris, and she is the best thing that has ever happened to me. Some of us go through tough labors and delivery, but the baby is just so worth it. Having a little piece of your soul to make your days brighter every single day. Oh, I love her so much. I don't know how many times I could say that. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening to my birth story. Please go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe, and let me know in the comment section what you would like to hear about in the next video. Always remember that I love you, and stay tuned for more Just Nikki vlogs. Mwah. And Iris says thanks for watching too. She's just at that stage where she has a very short attention span and wants to do something else all the time. Goodbye!